Last night, we learned a lot about humanity, and in a bizarre moment, the NFL showed us what America does when truly at a loss for words. It started with a completely ordinary play on Monday Night Football.
Not what any of us want to see, and everybody's around him, and let's hope that he's going to be okay.
So we'll take another break.
Damar Hamlin was not okay. He didn't get up. He's now in critical condition. The sheer force of the hit that you saw likely stopped his heart. Doctors gave him CPR on the field. Suddenly, sports broadcasters, accustomed to calling X's and O's with a few quips here and there and talking about the standings in the game, had to cover actual news. What happened? Why? What is intubation? What actually happens during CPR? What is an AED, an automatic external defibrillator? What to say in the agonizing minutes and hours when there is no news? There are really no words. Almost to a person, they all started the same way.
I just pray for the young man.
Praying for him.
Prayers all across the NFL community.
Prayers for Damar Hamlin.
Praying for him and hope and pray.
Prayers continue for Damar.
The tweets as well from NFL players, journalists, politicians, everybody talked about praying. In fact, anybody who dared talk about the game between the Cincinnati Bengals and Buffalo Bills got lectured about not praying. It's an idea as old as time, right? That in times of disbelief or shock, we turn to prayer and acknowledge a higher power. You have to pray to someone or something or some idea, something bigger than ourselves. This isn't politically correct to say, but that idea isn't exactly popular these days. Prayer and a higher power or a higher judge isn't exactly top of mind in good times. But when you have nothing to say and there are no words for how sad something is or how difficult it is to process, that's where we all go. Joining me now, Ian Samuel, fellow and law lecturer, Harvard Law School, Sarah Rumpf, contributing editor at Mediaite. Nice to see you both. Ian, is there something about times when we all can't explain something or the horror that we see that we have to look for something beyond us?
Sure. As the old expression goes, there are no atheists in foxholes. I'm sure there are some, but not for long. But the other thing that to keep in mind that I think is really an overlay on this situation is that the player affected was a black player. A lot of the commenters that you quoted were black commentators. I saw, Myles Garrett in the tweets. Many of the people that you quoted at the top were black Americans. And the prevalence of atheism in the black community in America has always been much lower than it has been for other groups. Like something like 60% of black Americans say that their religion is very important to them, right? And when you talk about something like professional football, where you have a huge percentage of the players and those coaches and the fans are black Americans and black people all over the world, of course, I think that it's not surprising that you see that deep-seated religious commitment at easy reference, right at hand. And I think that's a very good thing. And it's an example, one of a rare one of, sports actually shaping the character of American life in a very positive way.
Yeah, a positive influence from sports would be a good thing. I think about the prevalence of a religion just in America, Sarah. Do you believe in God? In the 1960s, 98% said yes. 81% say yes in 2022. Only 64% are convinced God exists in terms of depending on how you ask the question. You cover the media, Sarah. At times, the media is, I don't know if you could say scornful, but certainly skeptical of religion. But somehow, and this was not just true of African-American or black broadcasters, it was white broadcasters too, and those who are calling the game, who, when there's nothing to say, instantly go to talking about prayer and religion.
Well, I think, too, we have to think about just the uniqueness of what happened. This wasn't the standard football field injury. These guys know it's a dangerous sport. They're used to seeing hand injuries, wrist injuries, the awful torn ACLs and MCLs. But they know if they see their buddy go down with a knee injury, a torn ACL, his playing career might be limited or even ended, but he's not going to die from it. This was something that they knew right away when they saw that player on the field getting CPR for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 9 to 10 minutes, I think was the total. They knew he might not ever get up again.
Yeah, no.
And so not just for the players on the field, but the media watching that who have played the game, they're not used to thinking that someone's never going to get up again. And that makes you reevaluate how you think about things and talk about it. I'm not surprised at all that people turn to just an absolutely understandable human instinct to pray for that young man. And I'm glad that we've started to get some more positive reports about his prognosis.
Yeah, no, it is great news that he's gone from 100% oxygen down to 50% oxygen. Ian, to that point, sort of the shock that this could happen in an NFL game, right? And it's been decades since an NFL player was killed actually in the game. But should we really be all that surprised that when you take the very best athletes in the world and you tell them to run into each other as hard as they possibly can, even with great protection, that this is a possibility?
Well, and it's happened in other sports too. Actually, the most common sport that we've seen this injury in is baseball, because what seems to have happened is there's this condition which has a name I won't try to pronounce and embarrass myself. But basically, when you get a real hard thump in the chest at just the right moment, it can actually stop the heart of even an otherwise completely healthy person. So we've seen this in baseball. We've seen this in hockey, a hockey puck to the chest. And what appears to have happened here is in a totally legal, I mean, he was making the tackle and he just got a hard shoulder check to the chest. It's not surprising. And it's not the only area where it can happen, but obviously any kind of contact sport like this, you're going to run a risk of this. And so it's horrifying, but it's actually an example of an injury that can happen even in lower contact sports. I mean, baseball, for God's sake, it happened a century ago. And so this isn't an example of the unusually high level of physical contact of football being what probably made the difference here. It's just an occupational hazard for these players. And that's why I think, by the way, the players union was so instrumental in stopping the game. Like always, the labor unions are instrumental in fighting occupational hazards. And that's what happened here.
Yeah, for sure. And now the game will go on. It makes an interesting point, Sarah, that Ian brings up, which is has the media collectively, and I think specifically about the broadcast networks, NBC, that has big NFL contracts, Fox, huge NFL contracts, CBS, huge NFL contracts. They also have news organizations. Have they done enough to really hold the NFL to account for the real dangers of the game, least they screw up their NFL contracts and their access?
You know, that is a very good question. And honestly, it's one I've kind of weighed within my own mind. As a Florida Gator, I love watching college football, and I went out to watch them win a national championship in Glendale, Arizona one year. But I never have had an exciting moment at a game that I would say was worth somebody dying over. And, you know, the news reports that took years and years and years to get an admission from the NFL about the concussion risks. I mean, these are real issues that took far too long to report. Football makes a lot of money for a lot of people and a lot of organizations, and it is a heck of a conflict.
Yeah. Ian, to that point, if all of a sudden we're praying about things, right? If we're all together, we're all praying, there's thoughts and prayers and prayers and thoughts. Does that absolve somehow the tough conversations that you can get away sort of with talking about it in this very esoteric way? And if you dare bring up the facts or the difficult conversations, somehow you're not being thoughtful and prayerful enough? Is it a bit of an insulation to these media organizations?
Well, exactly. I think it should do just the opposite, right? I had a very wise priest once comment to me that, you know, by the way, kid, prayer does not change God. Prayer changes you. So one effect of the prayers for these players, if they are sincere, is a conversion of our own hearts to care about their welfare more, right? It's not as if God is waiting to, you know, tally up the number of prayers that Hamlin gets to see if he'll live or die. No, the point of praying for others is that it changes you. It makes you more disposed to care about their welfare and to really think about them as you would think about yourself. And so hopefully the effect of all of these people praying for Hamlin is that they will start to change. Those people will start to change in the way that they think about these players and the way they their perspective on the game. That would be a very salutary effect, I think.
That is an excellent place to leave it. We'll count on Sarah to see if prayer has changed any of those who were on TV praying last night. Good to see both of you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good night.